The year 2020 will be associated with one thing and one thing only: COVID-19. Hundreds of thousands of lives lost, millions of families affected, economies of almost every country taking a hit. Amidst all this, world sports is just a collateral damage, which even the most passionate fans learn to make do without. Good news, however, for said fans is that most sports have restarted, and we hope it's there to stay, be it with several changes. Welcome to today's podcast of York and Bounce. Our topic, as you surely know already, is cricket and COVID-19, a forcefully arranged relationship that must continue for the game's sake. Before we start, we as a team would like to express our deepest condolences to the people of Beirut. We stand with them in however way possible during such a horrific time. Now, to come to our topic, cricket and COVID-19. It sounds almost like an oxymoron, let's say, to have any sporting event linked to an actual virus which caused a pandemic. Now, cricket has seen many changes because of COVID itself. Would you like to elaborate on the rules per se? The new rules which have come into play now that cricket is taking place during such a pandemic?
Basically, there are 5 new rules after COVID-19, which is players used to use their saliva to shine the ball, which is no more allowed. There is an unofficial warning to the players that if they don't use their saliva intentionally or unintentionally. As far as the review systems are concerned, there are instead of 2 reviews, 2 DRS, there are now 3 reviews. There will be special COVID-19 substitute to be allowed. Suppose if a player gets sick, if a player shows some sort of symptoms regarding any sort of disease or any sort of illness, they are allowed to the team is allowed to have another substitute only for that match. And the most important thing, the social distancing norm. Players are not allowed to celebrate with other players with body contact. No body contacts are allowed during the celebrations, and no contact with the umpire, like Shakib Al Hasan used to do in BPL. She just yeah. So these are more or less some of the few rules. Basically, 5 new rules. And the last but not the least, players and the umpires are advised to sanitize their hands on a regular basis. So yeah, I just hope this helps to keep cricket COVID-free to a certain level. Yeah.
Thank you, Mama, for elaborating on those rules. So, what are your thoughts on this? Like, bowlers, ideally, no one would use saliva on the ball, but they do because maintaining shine on the ball has been very important for swing. What's your idea on that?
We have seen over the years that Asians are more involved in using saliva more than any other countries.
Now, let's talk about all the cricket that we've actually missed out on since mid-March. Now, the last series was the one-off game between Australia and New Zealand because the last 2 games had to be postponed, and at the end they were pretty much cancelled. So, all the cricket we missed out on. Do you think the boards would try and make up for more of those international games, or just move on with the future schedule?
A lot of boards are trying to reschedule some of their series. For instance, we can say England came up with a lot of safety precautions to hold their series. They started with West Indies tour of England, and a lot of changes. The changes we were talking about earlier, the changes, the precautions, the change of the rules. So England is trying quite hard, and as far as the other countries are concerned, there's Sri Lanka, which is slightly on the safer side right now. For instance, New Zealand, they're totally COVID-free. They eliminated COVID-19 way before we could even imagine, right?
So they're already hosting full crowd rugby games, so there's that.
Exactly. But in England, crowd is still not allowed, and the stadiums, as we have seen in the England West Indies series, totally empty. Though it doesn't make any difference, because England crowds are always silent. So so it doesn't make that much of a difference. But yeah, and as far some series getting cancelled, like if we talk about that, a lot of series got cancelled. Suppose the England tour of Sri Lanka, some few franchisee leagues like the Nepal Premier League, South Africa versus India series, and Australia versus New Zealand series, which got cancelled halfway through, right? Then the most awaited thing this year, the Asia Cup 2020, which people were looking so much forward to, and that was a big disappointment. And T20 World Cup 2020, that's a major disappointment. So yeah, and they have their logic. They just cannot host an Asia Cup or a World Cup in this pandemic, right? Another important we cannot call that a series. That was just a match. That was just an arrangement in our country in Mirpur in March, which is the World 11 versus Asia 11. So a lot. The whole country, almost the whole world were looking forward to it. That was a huge surprise for all the cricket fans out there. Then the Pakistan Premier League got stopped midway through. As far Indians are concerned, the IPL, the Indian Premier League, is set to reschedule, right? The Ranji Trophy, those are totally cancelled. The Indian international series are cancelled. But the Indian Premier League, as per Saurav Ganguly, the BCCI president, has stated that the IPL can get rescheduled in mid-October, most probably.
To think that only the Ranji Trophy is happening this year in India, India is known for cricket at this point, and
it's a religion.
Major domestic leagues, and only one of them is taking place right now. So it's going to be a difficult year for cricket or sports in general to recover. But again, as we started by saying, sports is just a collateral damage to all that has happened in the world within the last few months at least. So moving on, let's talk about the actual series that did take place. There were two, but let's start with the England-West Indies series. Tasbid, do you have a take on that? Let's start with the first test, if you will. England playing without their captain, playing after a while with a completely new captain, and the way West Indies performed is
struggle a lot as they played for a long time. So they got bundled out for 200, and West Indies scored about, I guess, 300 plus.
369.
West Indies got a very healthy lead at that time, which actually helped them in the third innings. When they got England bowled out for.
England got bowled out for in the second innings. They got bowled out for. Are you talking about the first test or the
third? First test, which West Indies won. They got England out very cheaply.
Yeah, in the first innings, England were bundled out for 204, if I'm not wrong, right? 204.
Yes,
absolutely.
West Indies got
the lead was very, very significant.
Yes.
For West Indies.
Yes, they got a lead of. They scored 318, which is a very good lead from what England have scored. But England showed some sort of
in the middle.
England showed some sort of comeback, right? But it just wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough, as the West Indies bowlers and batsmen were just too good for them in the first test.
Archer was the only one who pretty much made a fight out of it on the last day, giving England some hope. But
if we talk about
West Indies, absolutely dominant.
If we talk about West Indies bowling, Jason Holder also had a very good match, right? He had a figure of 6 for 42 in his 20 over spell, and Gabriel gave a very good start. He also had a decent spell for a test match. It's quite a decent spell. He had a figure of 4 for 62 in his 15.3 over spell.
I think his 4 for 62 was very important because he picked up the first 3 wickets. He broke the English top order straight away.
Exactly. That's the main focus.
And then his 5-wicket haul in the second innings. England looked like they were about to maybe set a target of above 250, and then came Gabriel's magical spell towards the end.
For England, the two batsmen that literally stood out was Ben Stokes, their captain, the new captain. He did a quite good job, right? He had done a decent job with the ball, with the bat. He scored a solid 43 from 97 balls. And Butler, the wicketkeeper batsman, he scored a solid 35, which wasn't, I won't say that's enough, but it did the job a bit. And when West Indies came out to bat, their opener Craig Brathwaite gave a solid score, came up with a solid score. He scored 65 from 125 balls. And the two batsmen that stood out from West Indies were Craig Brathwaite and Shane Dowrich. And that's when Stokes came again. This man is just a genius. He a total and a complete all-rounder. He picked up 4 for 49 from his 14-over spell. And talking about Anderson, his control over the ball is
Now, moving on to the last innings, per se, I don't want to spend too much time on the first test alone, but the first test was arguably the best test of that series. So, moving on to the last innings, the way Jermaine Blackwood stood out, it was exceptional to watch, because the man really had a point to prove. There were a lot of questions with his selection because he has had a poor run in international cricket, barring his performances against England. But with a strong domestic performance, he made his comeback, and it was exceptional to watch.
Since his debut against New Zealand in 2014, he couldn't show much of his potential. But in this test match, he was up to the mark.
Particularly in the second innings, yes.
Yes. So yeah, that's pretty much all from the first test, which was quite a spectacular match to watch.
And then we move on to the second test. I mean, I will say, however, after the first test, I get it, England's captain coming back was a huge morale boost, and Root obviously is one of the best test batsmen in the world right now. But do you still think, don't you feel, this question goes to both of you, don't you feel that West Indies, the way they crumbled in the last 2 tests, it was very disappointing to watch, given how much momentum they had with the first test?
Yeah, it is a very big disappointment, given they had a very good momentum. But then again, West Indies bowling and West Indies in this particular series we have seen a very, very, very good innings from the captain. A solid 176 from the bat of Stokes. It gave a huge
Boost.
not boost. It gave them a very good score in their first innings.
Aided by a very patient 120 from Sigley.
He just made his debut in the England cricket team in November 2019, but in a very short period of time, he proved himself to be a very good batsman, a test batsman, I would say. Following that, West Indies got bundled out for 287, where Vokes and Stuart Broad were the standout bowlers. Vokes getting a figure of 3 for 42 in his 21 over spell, and Stuart Broad with his class, he had a figure of 3 for 66, which is quite decent, more than decent, I would say.
Mind you, Stuart Broad was actually dropped for the first test, and he expressed his displeasure, if you will, that even for team balance, even for a change in bowling attack or whatever the reason was at the time, even though it was very well explained, it's not something that pleased Stuart Broad, and he didn't hide it. He expressed his displeasure, and the way he came back in next 2 tests, we'll get to that. But before that, I want to get your take on one more thing that to me was the most interesting thing in the series. Stokes, the opener.
We have seen a lot of unexpected stuff in cricket in the earlier times, but this was a total surprise, and he did the job pretty well, right? He
more than did the job, that's for sure.
Yeah, and
his innings was phenomenal, and it was exactly what England needed at the time.
That I would say for sure it was a very good decision. Unexpected, but it worked out so well. We have often seen some in other countries, like they open, and we have seen a lot of unusual opening partners. For instance, if we talk about Bangladesh, we have sometimes, not sometimes, more than one. It's like 1 or 2 times we have seen Ashfaque Rahim opening with Leighton Das. So that sadly didn't work out. that are very unfortunate.
We've even seen Mehdi Hasan Miraj if we're talking about Bangladesh.
And if we talk about Bangladesh Premier League, we have seen it from almost every team. We have seen Abu Hassan opening with Yasir Shah, which is quite
It's unorthodox to say the least, but it was really something.
Yeah, and they somehow managed to score a solid 35 as an opening pair. So yeah, sometimes just think out of the box, and it if you're fortunate, it comes out very, in your favor. It comes out in your favor if you're fortunate enough. So that's what England
Absolutely,
did,
yeah.
and they experimented with Stokes, sending not just sending him up the order, but making him open the innings, and that turned out a brilliant decision. Did the job very well.
I remember scrolling
didn't
through Reddit,
disappoint.
and a lot of people were calling it the super over opening pair because this opening pair of Stoke and Butler is what opened for England during the super over of the
Oh my
World
God.
final, and
That's
that's a huge thing.
Let's not talk about that super over that created a lot of controversies. Like
Imagine telling those two batsmen that very day that you're gonna win. You're not just gonna win the World Cup, but a year later you're gonna open together in a Test match. I don't think they would believe you.
That's what happened. And yeah, who can forget Martin Guptill throwing that ball at the stumps? But Stokes came on the way, and he just went for 4. And it costed New Zealand the whole World Cup.
Stokes has the golden touch. I think we figured that out by now.
We just cannot blame him, can we?
No, absolutely not.
But then again, you just get a feel for the Black Caps.
West Indies' moral was completely shattered. They were not there at all. It was basically England's bad day.
They never looked confident of playing this day out. They started quite poor with the ball, and were as horrible as you could imagine, right? With their fielding and catching, we saw stuff from Cornwall. Acha, wait, what's your point on, what's your opinion on putting an unfit player such as Rakim Cornwall in the slip cordon? And in a very important test series, I would say test match. What was the logic behind this? And he disappointed. He dropped not one or two, a few catches.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not saying that that's not disappointing, but I think the logic behind that is simple. He's not an agile fielder at all. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He's unfortunately not an agile cricketer at all. But
we have seen that.
They wanted him in a position where his agility will not be tested, where he will not have to move around. And unfortunately, the only position other than that of a wicketkeeper, of course, which he's not a specialist wicketkeeper, so he's not going to replace Dulwich, but
if he can be a wicketkeeper, what was Shehzad's fault? Why was he thrown away? Why was he just kicked out of the team?
Oh, that's a different discussion.
I would say Mohammad Shehzad from Afghanistan. Mohammad Shehzad is much more of a fit guy than Cornwall.
I don't think there is a debate in that. That's certainly true.
And I think West Indies more they picked Cornwall more for the batting more than the fielding, right? Or
I feel so as well. They wanted to add some batting depth, and as we know, Cornwall opens in the CPL.
Yes, we have seen the
he's
CPL.
Definitely he's not a tail ender.
He has some quality shots. As we're talking about how bad a day West Indies faced. Their top
that
order,
goes for the last day in both the test matches. Yeah. They were rain affected. They
gave up
for hours. Yeah. They had time. They could have. They kind of gave up to Broad's new ball magic, right? And they that is true, and that is sad. That is very sad.
And Indian bowlers have challenged their batters a lot. They stuck to their task. They held their lengths. The batters got caught in the crease, right?
And not to defend West Indies here, and not to say they.
No. We are not defending.
But here's something I would like to say, however, it's that the Old Trafford pitch. It saw 2 back-to-back test matches, and I felt, especially by the time it went to the 5th day of the 3rd test match, I felt like this is too much for the pitch. The uneven bounce was crazy. There were deliveries from who brought a bowler who is of good height and generates good bounce. They were creeping underneath the bat, and I have never seen it could just be me, but I have never seen bowlers of that caliber bowling and the ball not carrying to the keeper. You could say that the pitch had taken an effect. So it really wasn't easy to bat last day, but that's what West Indies wanted.
If we talk about, it's not just Old Trafford. If we talk about England pitches, it's never easy to bat up there, and especially for West Indies had, if not totally similar, but they have hard pitches in their home turf. So we can say, if not totally similar, but it has some sort of similarity with the West Indian pitches, and the England pitches have some sort of similarity. They're more on the greener side, but West Indies have more on the hard side. The pitch is quite hard and solid. So we can say, like, as far as the bounce is concerned, as far as the swing is concerned, there are some sort of similarities compared to what Asians have, what the subcontinent pitches are, right? So
yes, but I think so the problem
more like
that because of the safety reasons.
The main problem is teams that suffer the most in the England conditions are more of the Asian teams. We can say even India, though India has a lot of quality pacers, quality seam fast bowlers, but if we talk about their batting, they also give up to Broad's new ball magic and Anderson's accuracy. So if it might be Pakistan, it might be Sri Lanka, it might be India. We are not talking about Bangladesh because we are not touring England for quite a long time. So
absolutely,
it could have been much worse. To be very honest, it could have been much.
I remember
worse.
A young debutant 19-year-old or an 18-year-old Sam Curran making Indian batsmen dance to his tune in 2018.
Exactly,
and these are some of the best batsmen.
I guess that's the reason he got picked up for the IPL 2019.
Oh, absolutely. He got a massive contract, and he didn't even play a single international T20 until November 2019.
Exactly, and
so
we can't say that he disappointed a lot. He didn't disappoint that much. They have their swing, but at the same time, they have their pace too. They can swing the ball even at 145 kilometers per hour. But Sam Curran's only strength was the swing, which he lacked in the IPL because of the slow pitches, the dry pitches, and
he also had a very good game. I think it was against Delhi when he.
Yes, I told earlier he had a very good tournament. But what I'm saying is, like, he's more of a swingy test bowler.
Absolutely. Totally.
Give him a green pitch with a lot of grass. He will show you his class.
But what I like about him is how he's not sticking to the one thing and not being
Do you think his height is bothering him?
No, but that's the thing. A lot of people do suggest that, but I have observed that he's actually very confident with his bouncers. I've seen him get a bunch of batsmen out with bouncers because most of them are expecting the full-length delivery. But his bouncer isn't all that bad, and he also has a decent Yorker. So he's learning, and he will grow. He's very young. He will grow.
Did we talk about the third test?
We did, but just to put an overall wrap on things, how did you feel watching a test series during such a pandemic with the teams?
I won't say this was. Yeah, if it's in England, you expect a good crowd in the stands, but that was a disappointment. But then again, it's England, and even if there was a good amount of crowd, but it would have not made that much of difference. Because
I don't agree with that assessment because the Barmy Army are known for being quite loud and quite vocal.
We just see that in the Ashes.
They would have made some noise.
We see that in the Ashes. I don't think we see that craze in any other series than Ashes.
Oh yes, it's
Ashes, and you see the true colors of England crowd. Overall, it was good to have such a series like this, and it should be an example to other boards to how to host a cricket match even in this pandemic with proper safety precautions, proper safety measures. So yeah.
And also, just to add, I do feel a little bad for the Pakistan fans actually who are not going to be able to attend the Pakistan-England series. That's the thing that would probably generate better crowd than the England-West Indies series.
Oh, definitely, because Asian crowds, wherever they go, be it Bangladesh, be it Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, any part of the world, wherever they go, they literally light up the stadium, and it gets better and better when you have Asian fans in the ground.
And it felt good. It had been a while. I think 117 days between the two international matches. So it just felt good.
Brilliant.
So I guess that'll be a wrap for this particular discussion of cricket and COVID-19.
Yes.
We'll move on with our future reviews of the ODI Super League and the upcoming Test series.
Yes, and we will carry on with some exciting stuff which we cannot reveal now, but you will see.
It's a surprise.
It's a surprise. Exactly. So yeah, let's wrap up, and I hope you guys liked it. So put your valuable comments in the comment section and tell us what you want in the future to the reviews or what you want us to talk about. Yeah, that's all.
Goodbye.